Hello everybody, welcome back to today's episode of D&D Creature Feature. This is a show where I read you a Dungeons & Dragons based creepypasta, and at the end of the video I'm gonna give you something from that creepypasta, most often the stat block of a monster. But not this time guys, this time it's gonna be a subclass, stay tuned. For absolutely free. But before we can begin with this story, you might want to know who these two strange folks on screen are. Their names are Edgar and Valorie. They're a pair of adopted siblings. Edgar is a chthonic tiefling, College of Spirits bard, and Valorie is an infernal tiefling, College of Lore bard. So anyways, let's begin. Surgical procedures. It was a good feeling to finally be back in the village I grew up in. I had so many fond memories about this place. When leisurely strolling through the streets, I saw the orphanage that me and Val grew up in, the taverns I frequented when I was first legally allowed to drink alcohol, and the library that I had spent many hours of my youth at reading spooky folk legends and tomes about monsters and spells. It's really fun to look back on that time when I was just a greasy, stinky teenager and see how far I've come. But there's actually a specific reason why Valorie and I suddenly decided to return to this town. There will be a gathering of magisuologists that my sister and I were invited to be a part of. The man that organized this convention, a scientist named Martin Bonecarver, even offered the people attending the gathering a stay in the building where it takes place. Eddie, I'm so freaking excited for this convention, Valorie squealed when we stood in front of the large building belonging to Dr. Bonecarver, while the sun was setting behind us. The two of us gazed up in absolute awe at the old, overgrown, yet still elegant and pristine manor. We were so excited to meet up with other travelers and monster researchers and exchange stories with them. This was truly our passion. When we stepped inside the manor, we were greeted with various finely dressed people. Some of them familiar, some of them unfamiliar. Many of them were carrying tomes, filled to the brim with writings and rough sketches of strange creatures that Val and I had never seen before, for the most part. Almost immediately after entering, Valorie began to chat with an elven woman in an overly large pompous dress, discussing something about a creature that the both of them had encountered. Oh, those things are called wendigos. Yeah, one of those flirted with my brother. I could faintly hear her murmur as I was looking across the room to try and spot a person who looked like they had something interesting to share. Eventually, I began talking to an orcish gentleman in a fancy light blue suit with a douchey hat that had a feather stuck in it, who told me that he had an affair with some kind of eldritch monster when visiting the coastal regions. After a while of conversing with various people and sharing our stories, Dr. Bonecarver appeared on a stage at the back of the hall and announced that we would now be escorted to our designated sleeping areas. Martin Bonecarver was a very peculiar man. He was pretty tall and skinny and had a head full of short grey hair and a beard to match, despite him likely being only slightly older than me. The doctor was wearing a very dull beige pullover with strange, unidentifiable stains on it, and a long white coat that almost reached to his heels. Martin snapped his fingers and a bunch of people in similar white coats wearing beaked plague doctor masks, who I assumed were his employees, began to guide us to our residences. Me and Val soon found ourselves in a surprisingly nice and tidy room, with comfortable beds and a large window that let us look down at the streets of the town. "This is incredible," Val exclaimed before gripping her chin with her thumb and index finger and proceeding to mumble, "You know, how is this dude able to afford all these different guest rooms in his manor?" "You're right, maybe that's why the outside of the building is so run down, because he invested all his money in this," I comically suggested. "But that doesn't make any sense. Why would he need so many places to sleep? He can't be having this many guests over this often, right?" my sister questioned. "Well, right? We can ask the doctor about it in the morning if you want. Right now, I really need to go to sleep," I yawned, tumbling straight into my bed. For a while, I slept amazingly, but after a bit, I was forced awake by a very surreal nightmare. I rubbed my eyes, tiredly scanning the room, when I noticed something horrifying. Valorie was no longer laying in her bed. Therefore, I got up and exited our sleeping chamber and began to carefully stumble through the vast hallways of the estate. Eventually, I came across a small cohort of the people with the plague doctor masks and did my best to hide from them in order to not arouse any suspicion. Sweat dripped down my face as they walked directly past me while whispering to each other. After the coast was clear, I decided to inspect the direction that these people came from and was greeted with a dead end. At first I was confused, but Valorie and I had explored enough dungeons to know what was at play here. Thus I peeled off the wallpaper, revealing a barred metal door. When I stepped through, I nearly tripped as the door apparently led to some kind of secret staircase, and everything was shrouded in total darkness. I silently tiptoed down the stairs and found myself in some sort of cellar. The faint sound of muffled screaming filled the air, and I hastily rushed in the direction where it came from, only to find my sister strapped to some kind of medical bed with a large white piece of cloth covering her mouth to prevent her from speaking. She let out a sigh of relief when I removed the toggle and freed her from the bed. Oh god, Ed, I knew that something weird was going on here, but I never would have imagined this. Valorie gasped while pulling me into a tight hug. Do you know what's happening here, Val? I quietly asked her, feeling her rapidly beating heart. Kind of. I at least finally know how Dr. Bonecarver could afford all these rooms. I overheard his henchmen discussing something about selling and acquiring organs. Val stuttered. My heart sank as she finished the sentence. Just then, we heard something that gave both of us chills. An ear-piercingly loud screech. I squinted my eyes and saw a faint bluish-green light at the back of the chamber, the same direction where the sound had come from. Valorie hesitantly walked closer to the source of the glow and was confronted with some kind of test tube. Before either of us could say anything regarding our new discovery, the sound of shattering glass filled the air, and I was mortified to find that a bony, humanoid hand had broken through the tube. Not long after, the whole glass container split in half as the thing that was held within broke free. We were face to face with a monster that seemed to be entirely made out of the stitched together parts of various different people, and I nearly fainted as I saw that it had the head of the orc gentleman I had spoken to just hours earlier. The unnatural mound of flesh began to stumble towards us, coughing up the strange liquid that was also contained within the test tube, and was now covering the cold stone floor. I've heard about these things before, Ed, my sister proclaimed. They're called flesh golems, constructs assembled from different previously living beings and reanimated somehow. Oh god, do you think that Dr. Bonecarver might be a necromancer? I asked. The worst part is, I don't think that there's any magic involved with this monster, Val proclaimed. Both me and Val stood effectively no chance against the horrid amalgam, as neither of us had our spellcasting focuses. So we proceeded to just sprint throughout the cellar while the flesh golem tried to rip us into pieces. Just then, I came up with an ingenious idea. I taunted the monster to charge at me, but moved out of its way just in time to avoid being mauled and causing the creature to ram into the wall I was standing in front of, effectively knocking it out. But just as we thought we had won and were about to make a run for it, we heard yet another bone-chilling sound. Slow clapping. We looked to the entrance of the underground dungeon and found that none other than Martin Bonecarver was waiting for us there. "Well done," he said in his posh yet still monotonous voice. "Very well done. You defeated my latest experiment. I hope you didn't damage any of its parts, those were expensive, you know." "What is the meaning of this, Doctor?" I interrogated him, but he just brushed off my question and was sent into a hysterical laughing fit. "You may look at this laboratory and call me a monster for my experiments, but the truth is I'm working for a noble cause. I just so happen to not be restricted by your underdeveloped ethical understanding. I simply play the long game," Dr. Bonecarver explained. "What could possibly be important enough for you to murder all these people and reassemble their limbs into these repulsive monsters?" Val shouted at him. "There is, in fact, a greater experiment that I'm currently working on, but I fear that it may have developed a mind of its own and has become frankly unpredictable. I built the flesh golems in order to use them as my test subjects for interacting with the creature to see how much more powerful it has gotten. The golems are completely under my command and are therefore the most effective possible lab rats, and whatever parts I don't need I can just sell in order to keep my manor tidy and find new parts that I can build creatures out of," he shared, steadily pacing around us, attentively regarding our features. "Although I do think that it would be interesting to see how it interacts with living people. If you cooperate, it would be rather fun." "Yeah, right? Like we'd ever want to work with you," Val scoffed. The doctor began to slowly shake his head. "Did I say you have any choice in the matter?" He posed a simple yet frightening rhetorical question before snapping his fingers. Immediately after, at least 6 of his henchmen burst through the entrance of the dungeon and wrestled me and my sister to the floor. Then, Dr. Bonecarver grabbed a strange-looking syringe filled with an unrecognizable fluid and injected it first into Valerie's and then my upper arm. I soon began to feel very drowsy and my vision started to blur. The last thing I saw before blacking out was the face of the doctor confidently smirking at me, as if he was taking pleasure in something I was unaware of, and staring into my soul with his half-closed reddish eyes. Okay, so, plot twist. I don't think any of you saw that coming. I'm not giving you a monster this video, I'm giving you a subclass. It's a subclass for the rogue named the Surgeon that lets you heal people through organ transplants. It was based on the character of Martin Bonecarver from this creepypasta. I hope all of you have fun with it. Maybe it's something you could bring to like a Halloween one-shot or something. Anyways, here's the features you get from this subclass. Feel free to pause or take a screenshot or anything you want. Yeah, so anyways, that about wraps it up for today's episode of D&D Creature Feature. Let me know what you all think of the Surgeon. I think it's like a super flavorful subclass. Please give me some feedback. And I also hope you enjoyed today's creepypasta. Bye guys, stay spoopy everyone. Peace out.